Well, welcome back to the Andrew Eborn Show with me, Andrew Eborn, and my very special guests today, Errol Musk and Ben Habib. Ben, I want to look at this policy, if you like, about mass deportation. Now, you've advocated mass deportation. It aligns with Tommy Robinson's calls for tougher measures. Talk to me about how your deportation policies differ from Reform UK's, which Elon criticised as inadequate.
So we don't really know what Reform's deportation policy is because they said something a couple of days ago, then they contradicted themselves the next day, and then they contradicted themselves again. But we don't really know what their deportation policy is. I think they said initially that there are around 600,000 people in this country who are here illegally, and that they would all be deported, that there would be five plain jumbo jets flying out of this country every day, that they would set up facilities to house 24,000 people, seems a very precise number to me, 24,000 people, and they would be exiting 24,000 people a year or something. It all sounded performative and not serious. Errol put it absolutely the correct way. It doesn't matter how many people as far as the policy is concerned, it doesn't matter how many people are in this country illegally. All of them need to be detained, and all of them need to be deported. And
Yes.
and frankly, doesn't matter what the cost is, and frankly, it doesn't matter how long it takes. You've just got to do your very best to get it done as fast as possible, because the assault
Yes.
otherwise on this country is much, much greater. So our policy, Advance UK's policy, we haven't produced policies, but I'm sure it will be along the lines of stop the boats in the channel, do not allow them to land on British land, don't allow them into our territorial waters, send them back to France. They put themselves in these boats, they should go back to France. However, if they make it through, they should be immediately arrested and they should be detained, and then they should be deported at the first possible opportunity and detained until that happens in meager circumstances, not in luxury, in meager circumstances, like a prisoner would be. And anyone in this country who similarly has entered the country illegally needs to be treated that way. And I would go further, and I would say that there are many people in this country who are here legally, and we should be encouraging them through consensual arrangements to go back home because we need to settle our own country.
Well, that's certainly the position in the States at the moment. And a lot of people have been very worried if they arrived illegally, they've got no right to be in the States. Trump's got a very hard line on this. What's your take, Errol?
Yes. Well, yes. Obviously that's the thing to do. You say 600,000 illegals, but remember they're going to bring their families.
Absolutely.
They're going to bring people that they aren't even related to. They'll pretend they're related to them. So you will wind up with probably about 10 to 12 million of these people in due course. And that's why, the Americans have looked forward to the future and said, well, this could be an Islamic state in due course, England or UK. And, in that case, they would have nuclear capability. And so we have to bear that in mind. And it seems almost hard to believe. But in fact, we already have a situation where about 20 of the towns or cities in England are run by Muslims, including London. So it's just so against everything that everyone understands to be the right way. It makes no sense at all.
It doesn't. We've set aside our Christian.
On the other hand, you do get good people. I'm not saying people are bad, but I'm not allowed to walk into England. I have to pay a fortune to go to England. And I might say I was staying at one of the nicer hotels in London 3 months ago, and there wasn't a single person working. They were all very nice, but there wasn't a single person working at the hotel that was English. Everybody I encountered was either from Afghanistan, India, or somewhere else. And, they were very pleasant, and I don't mind that because they've come to look for a decent life. The British have gone to a lot of trouble to make a decent life for their people over hundreds of years. And the outsiders can see that and say, they don't come there to give you a hand up. They come there to take what you've got, and say, wow, this is what we want too. So we're going to take it from you. and they're not going to help you in any way. And try and immigrate to one of their countries. You'll see what happens to you.
Yeah. And I think it's the distinction, isn't it? Obviously, between illegal migrants and legal ones. And you look at that sort of side, and certain industries are dependent on workforces around the world. We've had a big case at the moment, Errol, that you may or may not have heard about, which is about the Epping hotel and 138 migrants. The Court of Appeal just said they will be allowed to remain in an Epping hotel. They overturned the earlier High Court ban on housing them there. But originally they were going to be booted out by the 12th of September. Ben, what's your take on the Bell Inn and the Epping Forest debacle?
Well, it actually proves, doesn't it? Not that proof was needed, that the government is in favour of looking after these people who come to this country in 4-star, 5-star circumstances. Starmer, I don't know if you're aware of this, Errol. I'm sure Andrew will be. Starmer doesn't even call people coming to this country illegal migrants. He calls them irregular migrants. He can't bring himself to recognize that they've entered the country illegally. Anyway, it is funny. But, the Epping case is very important because the planning law in this country effectively turns on two things: top-down planning policies and guidelines that planning authorities have to follow, but also what local residents want. Planning authorities have to take note of what local residents want. Now, the challenge made by the local authority against this hotel was that it was breaching planning law, that they were using it for the housing of illegal migrants when it should be a hotel. And that self-evidently is the case. And they won the High Court case, and all of Epping is proverbially up in arms, wanting this hotel to go. So they have the right of planning law on their side. They have the right of the people of Epping on their side. And Starmer interceded in the case and made all the arguments he possibly could to defeat the local residents of Epping and defeat the local authority, and in my view, breach the law. And he's got away with it at appeal. So it tells you this government is in contempt of its people. It will put illegal migrants ahead and above and to the detriment of British people. That's what that Epping case tells you, unequivocally.
Yeah, and it's important to point out, obviously, the injunction was originally obtained by Epping Forest District Council in the wake of public protest about the alleged sexual assault of a girl aged 14 by one of the Ethiopian asylum seekers. The asylum seeker has been charged. He denies any wrongdoing. But as you say, Ben, it's putting the interests of the illegal migrants above those residents who are paying all their taxes and so on and so forth.
Exactly. I mean, it's just horrendous. It's horrendous. Starmer should be booted out. If there was a legal mechanism, and we've got to be very careful what we hope for, but if there were a legal mechanism to get him out of office on dereliction of duty, this is as good as any. He should be booted out.
Yeah, and Errol, you've never been a fan of Starmer. You said he'd be gone by February this year. What's your current view?
Yes. I mean, it was obvious from the day one, that this is some kind of setup, this Starmer. And I don't think you have to be a genius if you've got a little bit of experience to realize that Starmer is taking his instructions from somewhere. Someone is giving Starmer instructions. I don't think looking at him, I don't think he's thought this whole thing out himself. He's getting his instructions from somewhere. And
where do you think he's getting his instructions from?
Well, we all would like to have an answer to that. I was on CNN a couple of days ago, and I mentioned that to them. They came to my home, by the way. All flew from America to South Africa.
Right.
Anyway, and I mentioned to them that, you do know that at 4:00 every morning, all your outlets that you're associated with get their instructions of what they're supposed to say every day. And we find it very comical because the same words are spoken by every one of about 20 outlets, the exact same words, by every single presenter for the rest of the day are repeated over and over and over. And they get this instruction at 4:00 every morning. And so obviously they're getting their instructions from somebody, somewhere. And I would have no doubt whatsoever. In fact, I put a lot of money on it that Starmer gets his instructions, what he has to do. Because simply the fact that if he were alone in this situation, by now the amount of negative response he's experienced from the British public would make any normal person start to question himself and wonder what I'm doing, because people have an innate desire to be popular and to be liked and to be thought of as being, a good man and a solid person and all that sort of stuff. And the stuff that's being thrown at Starmer daily is that he's a useless, hopeless joke of a prime minister. And the only way that he can possibly be able to stomach that is if his bosses are saying to him, don't worry, you're doing good. So somebody's telling him he's okay, he's doing good. Because if he were on his own, purely on his own, he would be starting to drink or something, to calm his nerves. He'd be looking for something to... I saw a thing where he went into a pub and the pub owner screamed and told him to get the hell out of my pub. Now, I've been around. I've had people tell me how wonderful I am, and I've had people tell me how bad I am. My life is spent wondering how I can make the people... I'm not worried about the people who say how good I am. I'm worried about the people who say how bad I am. How can I perhaps change their view on me, So we as humans, we like to know that our peers appreciate us. So in Starmer's case, this is obviously not the case. So how is he managing? He's managing because there are powers or some things behind the scenes saying to him, good on you. You're doing it great. You did a great job today. You're our number one boy. Somebody's telling him that.
Ben, any views on that?
Well, he's definitely... All these politicians, I think, get their instructions from somewhere. Absolutely.
So where do you think it is? Where do you think they're getting them from?
You don't have to look too far.
Right.
The money he gets is from the unions. Look at the deals that he gave the unions. He settled every strike by collapsing. And in that budget in October, Rachel Reeves spent £71 billion. She was banging the drum about the Tories having left her a £20 billion black hole. And then she spent another 70. I mean, and all those pay settlements for the unions. So he's dancing to the unions' tune. He's dancing to the tune of people like Lord Ali, who we know lives in and out of number 10, number 11, buys dresses for Mrs. Starmer, buys sunglasses for Mr. Sir Keir Starmer, and so on. He's dancing to that tune. The Tories are the same. They have their big donors and they're dancing to their tune. And I'm afraid Farage is the same. Why do you think Zia Yusuf gets so much prominence with Farage? Farage loves money. He told me he loves money. So these guys follow the money. You know who's calling the shots.
Right. Interesting. Well, the Times...
Can I just say one thing?
Yeah.
Can I say one thing, if I may? One of the reasons I think Elon can speak so freely and does speak so freely and couldn't care less, and even though I'm nowhere near as wealthy as Elon, I'm not even a fraction, but I'm wealthy enough not to care about what people do to me. And I think Rupert Lowe is the same. And that's why we speak our minds in some respects, because we're not going to be bought. I don't care. You can offer me anything. It's not about money now. For me, it's about doing what I have to do.
Yeah, and you're absolutely, and I think that's absolutely key. The other thing as well, isn't it, is avoiding hypocrisy. I mean, the Times talks about 13 councils preparing legal action against the government to close migrant hotels in their councils. The Match cartoon today says that if we had to close migrant hotels, we could put all the migrants into Angela Rayner's properties. What's your view on the whole Angela Rayner situation, Ben?
Well, I think it's hugely hypocritical, isn't it? The way that they absolutely are nailing the working and middle classes with taxes, regulations, expenses, and so on, making our lives absolutely miserable. And there she is living it up at the taxpayers' expense. It's wretched. And I've got no defense. Again, Farage defended her. I don't want to talk about Farage. But why would you defend Angela Rayner in her self-enrichment? She should be drummed out of office. They should all be out of office. We need to drain the swamp. Who said that? Someone great said that, I think.
Well, one of the big problems we've had over here, Errol, is a clampdown on people flying the English flag, the Union Jack, and so on and so forth. We talk about British sovereignty, and flags resonate with obviously people like Tommy Robinson and so forth. How do you define British identity and encourage people to celebrate their sovereignty and where they come from?
Well, that's an inherent part of who you are. That's not something that needs encouragement. You grow up from the day one. I mean, the moment you talk, I mean, my mother, was British, and she certainly told everybody, and certainly told me, that we are British, and we do this and we do it like this and we do it like that. So it starts from a very early age, and a sort of code of sort of honor and all that sort of stuff, or whatever you want to call it. But the Americans have got it as well, and the Russians have got it, and so on. So what's happened is the British people have been bombarded with stuff like inalienable rights and all that sort of stuff, to question their own feelings, to question their own self, question their own identity, and to be told they're not good enough, so that they haven't done the right thing all their lives, and now they've got to sort of do it this way and that way, and it goes against the grain for everyone. They can't quite understand it. I would imagine they can't understand it because, as I said just now, everybody wants to feel that they are doing the right thing. Whether you're in a small town or in a small village or even in a family situation, you want to be thought of as, everyone wants to be thought of as doing their bit and so forth. And now the British are actually being chastised. The English people, I think of it as the English people, I see the English flag, chastised for being who they are and asking people to recognize who they are and not, they're not give uppers or whatever you call it. They are people who are very proud of their country and very proud of their heritage and all that sort of stuff. And they're being told you're not allowed to do that. Well, this just makes no sense at all.
No, it is complete and utter nonsense, and it's also this sort of two-tier system where this is the whole sort of concept of this sort of stuff, and the problems about freedom of speech, and police should be policing the streets, not our tweets. And we've had the terrible case. Lucy Connolly's now been released. She's obviously fueled debates on free speech. Obviously, Ben and Tommy Robinson, various others have defended her right to speak. Ben, where do you draw the line between free speech and harmful rhetoric, and how will Advance UK navigate such controversies?
Well, it was very, there's no such thing as harmful rhetoric. There is rhetoric which is an incitement to violence, which is what the bar used to be. If you were using rhetoric to direct people to being violent, then you would go to prison. Sorry, forgive me for a second. You'd go to prison, and that was a perfectly legitimate hurdle. And they've changed it now, and they've made it basically, if you offend someone, you can be arrested. If you offend someone, you can be arrested. But offending people is the foundation of debate.
Yes, of course.
Well,
it was the friend of Voltaire, wasn't it, who sort of turned around and said, "I'll defend your right to speak." I mean, this is what you've got to do. I think it's the principle. I may not agree with you, but you've got to defend people's right to have views which are contrary to yours.
Yeah, absolutely right. And it's only through debate, through offending people, through allowing ideas and ideologies to be robustly aired and challenged, that you come to a settled state of what is the correct way to go forward. And so you can't improve your country, you can't come to the right policies and the right way to govern if you can't have a combative debate. And Lucy Connolly, slightly different from a debate, but she did not incite violence. She was venting her anger. She said, "For all I care," and those are the critical words, "for all I care, go and burn the hotels." But she didn't say, "Go and burn the hotels." we understand how the English language is used, and she used it in an exasperated way, not as a direction to people to go and do something physical. And Starmer keeps saying he doesn't know her case, so he can't comment on it. Bollocks. He was the blooming pub. He was a DPS, wasn't he?
Absolutely. He was in charge of. And the problem, and we've touched on this beforehand, the problem is that she pleaded guilty. You had a recent case of somebody who was talking about on the street about slitting their throats. You might remember this. And they were found not guilty because they went for a trial and they worked on that sort of basis. I'm sure, confident that if Lucy had pleaded not guilty, she would have had a similar verdict.
Yeah, but she was given bad advice. The system abused her. The system abused Lucy Connolly. She was told, you plead guilty, it'll all be done, you'll be out in 5 seconds. And then they gave her a sentence which in many cases exceeds the sentence they give child abusers. I mean, it's just absolutely mad. So this is why we mustn't say, going back to your Tommy Robinson question, this is why we mustn't allow the system to say he mustn't be allowed to speak or she mustn't be allowed to speak. It's the thin end of the wedge. Before you know it, they'll lock us up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Elon's an advocate, probably the poster boy for free speech, Errol. You and I have discussed Lucy Connolly's case beforehand, and indeed Tommy's case beforehand, and the question of the punishment fitting the crime. Well, what's your current take on the state of the UK?
Can I, just before you answer that, Errol, I've got to go, I'm afraid, Andrew. Is that all right? I've got to
Okay, of course. Well, Ben, thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
You log out. I'll carry on with Errol. But
thank you.
Ben Habib, good
luck with everything. I'm sorry I have to go.
Come back and tell us when you reach 30,000.
Yeah, I hope it'll be soon.
Okay.
Okay.
Take care. Bye-bye. Nice to see you, Errol. Bye.
So Errol, let's talk about that then. You talk about the sort of side about freedom of speech and that sort of side. What is your current view of the UK and how that's progressing, if at all, on the areas of freedom of speech?
Look, there's no doubt that the British government, as it is treating the British public as a vassal that they can push around and use in whichever way they want. They do not see the British public as having elected them or put them in place. They see the British government as a group that they must manage, in as much as a farmer might herd around cows, or a herd of cows, how they would move a herd of cows around. So the government views the British people as sort of a herd of cows, and they are the cowboys, and they must push the herd whichever way they think is best, and to the abattoir, no doubt, in the end. But that's exactly what is happening there. The people are viewed as a herd of cows, and they can scream and shout as much as they like. The decision's been made. The herd will move this way, in that direction. And the cowboys are owned by someone at the WEF or something. I don't quite agree with Ben, who I find very interesting to listen to, by the way. But I don't think it's local. I think the people who are giving the instructions to England, to the UK, are from abroad. They're not from England, and they're getting the instructions. It's the only way that Starmer and his people can have the confidence they seem to have to do what they are doing. Because if they were doing it purely out of their own, as I said earlier, it would start to work on a person. If they were just individuals on their own, you only have to look at all the books and stories and films and everything about people who get a great deal of power and reach the top, and they start cracking, because you need to be liked, you need to be loved, it's quite obvious that nobody loves Starmer. Nobody. I can't imagine. I haven't seen anyone ever say, "I love this guy." And I even saw a point where his wife looked so miserable, and they were saying this woman that he's married to is horribly unhappy. But it was written all over her face. It was written all over her. And so you can't live like that. So somebody's telling him, somebody who he respects greatly, is telling Starmer, and that red-headed woman, who's mildly attractive. I don't know what her name is, Angela or something.
Yes.
But
yes. Angela Rayner, is that the one you
telling
like?
Them,
yes.
No, it's telling them. Someone from abroad is telling them, "Well done, well done, well done. You've done the right thing. We've moved you up. We're giving you a promotion now. So next time you come to us at the WEF or wherever it is, we're going to give you a better chair because you're going well.
Do you, I mean, as you say, that's the difference between you and Ben.
We might even fly you first.
Yeah.
What?
As you say, that's the difference between Ben is saying there's things like the unions are controlling Starmer. You think it's a much bigger. You think it's the WEF.
Oh yes. No, it's not local. It's not the unions. No, I mean the unions. It's obvious, what the unions always want. I mean, unions are good. I mean, they have their value and so forth. But no. The kind of instructions Storm is getting are from much higher up, somewhere else, some sort of committee of as Klaus Schwab wrote about in his book. There's this committee that's going to rule the whole world, and it's going to be 300 people who rule the whole world, or something to that effect. And he writes it quite plainly in his book, and that no city will be over a certain size, and people will be moved from one place to another depending on labor needs and so forth. So Schwab's book is quite clear, so it's not difficult to come to the conclusion that somebody's giving them instructions, and it's enabling them to get up every morning. Because if I were Starmer and I were to get up every morning and see and say they tell me you have to go out the back way, sir, there are people at the front who are calling you terrible bad names. So we're taking out the back way in a dustbin, or we're putting in the back of a car boot, so we can get you out today. No, that's not very nice for your self-image, because everybody wants to be liked.
No, I think that's absolutely right. It is interesting. Now, we've had a number, when we told people on the show, lots of people have written in with questions for you. We had one from DJ Jason, who says, do you think that the UK will end up like South Africa politically and economically?
Well, no, you can't go that far. No. I think England is starting to wake up. The British have always been quite well known to be, most people who are confident and satisfied in their lives are not easy to rile. They don't rile or get riled up so easily, or if that's the right word. But the British are known for that. They there's so many examples. It takes them time to wake up. The Americans are a bit the same. They give the benefit of the doubt continuously to the other side, and before they actually, respond. But unfortunately for the other side, for the baddies, as we've had in the past, when the English contingent, the people who consider themselves, the English-speaking world, when they do wake up, they wake up with a vengeance, and they drop atomic bombs. You know what I mean? And they don't take any prisoners. So it changes as things become more evident, as to what they have to do. I mean, you only have to go back to the 30s when Churchill was saying repeatedly from the early 30s, we've got a real problem on our hands here in Europe, We've got a real problem on our hands. And everybody was saying, yeah, well, I'm sure they'll see the light. No, man, come on, they're good blokes, at the end of the day and so forth. Until finally he's the Prime Minister and he's having to sort of steer the country through a horrible situation, which he did. And, it just takes time for them to sort of wake up to it. I've seen that. You see it in everyday life. You see it in the cities and towns in which you live, where things of a certain kind, something or other goes wrong, and when they do fix it, they fix it all the way. They change things all the way, and people are marched off in and so we're done with you. But it takes some time. It takes good people time to react. That's what I'm saying. So as far as England is concerned, no, it can't go that far. Something's got to give in the near future. I personally thought that Starmer would not make it through the early part of this year. Many reports have come out. Starmer's done. I read it regularly. But how he's hanging in there, I don't know. There's no doubt whatsoever that if an election were held today, Starmer would be voted out immediately.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. As I say, having had the joy of having you on the show for several shows, you've spoken about that, and very eloquently as well. And we always touch on this, and it's fascinating to hear, because I introduced you, as you know, to GB News, so they've had you on regularly. And what Ben was saying is that on one of the shows, having you on as well, it suddenly was the catalyst for Elon to discover Ben and the new party. so between us, we're conquering the world, Errol. It's got to be good, isn't it? I think
sorry?
I think what's also interesting is looking. Tommy's also, he's now joined Advance UK. You've been a big advocate of Tommy, calling him the new Nelson Mandela. He's got this big event happening on September the 13th. He sent me a text in the last few hours to say he's expecting over 1 million people to turn out, and he wants it to be a peaceful, basically celebration of peace, if you like. Exactly that. He doesn't want to have people sort of stoking up any sort of trouble. What's your current view on Tommy?
Well, he's a high-profile figure, so he's England treasures. I don't want to say that I'm putting Tommy in any sort of bad light or anything, but I know that England treasures the sort of Etonian way, you have to sort of look the part, and all that sort of thing. And America's got rid of that, and many examples of that, and of that being done away with in America. But generally, Tommy, is not as polished as what one might like. On the other hand, Farage and these guys are, but they tinny. They don't say anything. So it's a difficult one. If I were to sort of think, I would say one is looking for in the UK, looking for a man of strength to come forward. Much as what has happened in America with Donald Trump. Now, if you look at what Donald Trump went through last year,
yes,
and the way he was treated, I mean, we come back again to feeling good about yourself. He was actually fined $500 million for malpractice as a property developer, which was nonsense. Which was absolute nonsense. Trump redeveloped the west side of Manhattan from old rundown railway yards into the most magnificent buildings imaginable. To do that, he had to fight foot and nail, what they call foot and nail or something. To do that, and he did it.
Yeah.
Yes, and he was, and look what he went through last year. He was accused of raping a woman he didn't even know. He was told he had to pay her $80 million. I mean, I met Trump when he was 31. I was 31 as well. And he was incredibly good looking. I mean, he was an incredibly good looking guy. I mean, he was like a movie star, and he dressed so well. I mean, he was well off too. And so when women say he would have to rape them, that's a joke. That's ridiculous, because he didn't have to do that. The women were throwing themselves at him. I mean, it's laughable. You know what I mean? And anyway, but the point is, coming back to now, Trump is the one who's come forward there, and he's shown people the way. And I received a letter from an email from a friend of mine who's over there now. He's very, very sort of stuck in the mud, sort of South African guy, I'm South African, this sort of thing. I'm never going to go anywhere and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, he was sending me, he said, that 80% of the people that I meet when I'm going through America, it's the first time he's ever been in, are behind Trump. Right. Oh, he says, he's so happy they're behind Trump. So I went back to him and said, no, it's actually 100%. He said, yeah, you're right. It is actually 100%. I just said 80% because it sounded better.
It's very interesting. Well, it is fascinating because undoubtedly, and we've spoken about this beforehand, Elon helped Trump tremendously win the election. Finally, and very briefly, is he going to do the same over here in the UK for Advance UK, do you think?
Sorry?
Do you think Elon's going to help Advance UK win the election over here?
Well, what can Elon do? He can say a few things, and he can, no doubt. I mean, I'm not sure whether you're allowed to take money from a foreigner and influence elections. I don't think that's
not as a general proposition, but yes, there are companies and so on and so forth. There are ways of certainly helping, and certainly with the most powerful news outlet in the world, which is X now, and people getting a lot of their sources from there. You can certainly make an influence from that point of view.
There's no doubt that Elon's going to follow the right path, and in as much as he can maintain freedom of expression for himself and listen to the freedom of speech of others and everything like that. Clearly, he's going to support improvements in the UK, which would include stopping all illegal immigration, removing all illegal immigrants. I mean, that's just basic, and getting the police there to actually do work for the people and not for whoever it is they seem to be working for at the moment. And no, Elon will do that. There's just no question about it. The problem is, who are you going to replace Starmer with? You're going to replace with Farage? Farage is going to be another version of another version of a kind of Boris Johnson sort of situation or something like that. He's not going to do anything. He's too comfortable. He's not going to make gigantic changes. So Farage, I listened to his talk about how he's going to send 10,000 people a year away or something like that over the next 24 years or something like that. I mean, it was absolutely laughable. Yeah. I mean, getting these people away from there, it's not with airplanes. You get big ships and you bring them into Southampton or wherever that can take a lot of people. I mean, like they did in the war. And you put them on those ships at, 40,000 at a time or 50,000. And you send them with that ship. They drop them off at different places, wherever they came from. And that's it. Okay. You don't put them in jets and...
Absolutely. Very clear. Errol, it's always a delight to have you on the show. Delighted to introduce you officially to Ben Habib as well. He was very keen to come on the show together. So that was good. We will get you back very, very soon. But for now, Errol Musk, thank you so much for joining me.
Okay.